Yes, great to see everyone, especially welcome to the new members. It's great. The theme that we have this month is pursuing beauty. And I was thinking back of when this theme became important to me. And it was when I was a teenager and I began noticing girls. That's when pursuing beauty started basically for me. And I remember an incident. I was in Canada when I was 16 years old doing an exchange year, living with my aunt actually to learn English. And I went to the supermarket and I saw this. I can only explain it as a model working at the cashier in the supermarket. And I saw this model and I was like volunteering now to my aunt that every week I would go to the supermarket to buy the groceries because I wanted to pursue beauty because I saw this model in the supermarket. And I kind of even sometimes went when I didn't need anything because she was so beautiful that at one point I said, you know, it's stupid if I just kind of hide behind the aisle checking out this model. I couldn't even imagine why a model would work in a supermarket like that, but she was, and so I said I'm gonna go up to her at some point. But every time I got a little nervous and I kind of pushed it aside. And then one day I said, I'm gonna go to that supermarket and I'm gonna buy something. I didn't need anything, so I picked up 5 things and I'm going into the line where she's actually working. My feet are trembling and I'm actually asking her when it's my turn if she wants to grab a coffee with me. Now, a second passed and it felt like eternity. She looks at me and she tells me, I'm sorry, I have a boyfriend. Now, at that point, my heart kind of sinks, but I give her the look, okay? The Zimmermann look. And I'm like, you know, I didn't want to go have coffee with your boyfriend. I wanted to have coffee with you. And I tried again. And she said, I'm sorry, people now at this point were kind of watching us behind me. I was dying inside. So I just picked up my 5 things that I didn't need. I paid and I left. Now, I actually learned a few things about pursuing beauty out of this story. And I want to share very quickly just four things out of this story that basically helps, I think, all of us. The first one, and I brought you some beautiful pictures here as well. The first one is, it takes courage to pursue beauty. I could have stayed in the safe zone, in the aisle, and just looked at this beautiful girl all day long. But beauty doesn't come to those who stay in the aisle. It takes courage. And so I was trembling, asking her out. I had to take a risk. The risk was humiliation, being laughed at, being rejected in front of everybody. I kind of, worst case scenarios all in my head playing, but I put myself out there. Now, most of us, if we're honest, most of the time we play it safe. We settle for the ordinary because the extraordinary feels that we need to expose ourselves. We build businesses that maybe work but don't really inspire. And we design lives that are functional but they don't move us. We stay basically in the grocery line instead of walking up to the counter. Now, the Medicis poured fortunes into art, not because the return of investment was obvious, but because they understood that beauty builds a legacy in ways that kind of a spreadsheet never captures. And they had the courage to invest into something that the people at the time sometimes didn't even value. But centuries later, we all travel to Florence because of that. So the question is, where in our lives or business are we just admiring beauty rather than going up and basically have the courage? The second lesson out of that story is that it takes failure to pursue beauty. Now, I failed. She said no. I walked out with 5 random grocery items and my pride kind of shattered into pieces. Now, at some time pursuing, sometimes pursuing beauty feels like, a failure. It's embarrassing, and the rejection feels devastating. But here's the thing: I tried. I stepped up. Okay, I asked. And good news is I'm married today, okay? So it worked at some point. The supermarket girl said no, but the muscle I built, that stayed with me, So for me, one area of pursuing of beauty is actually something that we normally don't put in the category of beauty, and that is the art of communicating. I find it deeply beautiful if I see effective communication take place. And kind of the power to stand in front of people and move them with words. And from an early age on, I actually studied how great communicators communicate and what I kind of learned. And then came my big day. When I was 16 years old, I was giving my first speech. I was giving my first my first talk in front of people. It was in an audience of 100 students, high school students. Okay, the worst environment you can imagine. And I was supposed to speak for 30 minutes. So here's me getting up there to speak. Now the problem is my right foot was shaking so much that I could not move over to the left foot and actually move around, or I would have fell off the stage. Now I knew great communicators move around, but I was basically so nervous that I lost control of my right foot. And when I was done, I sat down, and the person next to me really said, "Was that it? Was that it?" And I was like, "Yeah, that was it." It's like, "Oh, this was only 11 minutes." I spoke for 11 minutes rather than 30. I thought basically I spoke for like 2 hours, but in 11 minutes I said everything, everything that was in my manuscript, so to speak. And failure basically isn't the opposite of beauty; it's the price of admission. No, and today I've spoken to almost 1 million people alive, but it all started with really kind of a big failure. Now, every great speaker bombs normally at their first talk. Every great artist often throws away their early work. And great entrepreneurs launch something, and often it flops. It's not all perfect. Failure is part of the story. The third lesson is beauty shows up in unexpected places, but we actually need eyes to see it. So in a supermarket, which is not the place where you expect beauty, the model all of a sudden was the cashier. And I needed eyes to see and ears to hear, so to speak, for beauty to show up. It often shows up in unexpected places. It's in our ordinary everyday, which also kind of hit me just a few days ago, which is kind of also a confession. The last 2 weeks, I've been working on a book I'm writing, and a book I'm trying to finish. It's about the character named Mark, who is overworked and stressed. His marriage is falling apart, and he gets an invitation to come to Florence to learn from Cosimo de' Medici the secrets of what the Medici Bank how he turned the Medici Bank into a self-managing business. So that's kind of the story. But I'm completely stressed because I was under a deadline, or I am actually still under a deadline. And I realized that I make basically the characters walk around in circles in Florence, and that I missed some historical facts, and that I all of a sudden kind of had to rework. And I was just frustrated about this whole thing. And as I walked out of the coffee shop, it hit me that actually I am right now living my dream, and I'm totally frustrated. If you would have asked me a few years ago what my dream is, it would have been sitting on a Mediterranean island in a nice coffee shop in the old part of the town, writing a book, a fictional book about about Cosimo de' Medici and Florence. That is a dream, but I missed it because I was stressed out. And that's often the danger, that we just don't recognize that it's here. that often, if we look back 10, 15 years, we are now living the dream that we always wanted, but we are missing because we are thinking of the next piece. So for me, this is basically, we need the eyes to see. It's almost like beauty is the goal in the river of our ordinary lives, but we need to find basically the goal. We need to have the eyes to see rather than just being busy running around. Now, basically, the Medicis understood this. Lorenzo de' Medici surrounded himself with poets, artists, and philosophers, not just because he could afford to, but because they helped him see. They shaped his ability to notice what others missed, and that made a big difference. And then the last thing that I basically out of that story is beauty looks different for everyone. Okay, the famous German painter Albrecht Dürer, he said, "What beauty is, I know not. What beauty is, I know not." Even the great masters approach beauty with humility, because beauty looks different for everyone. The girl in the supermarket, to me, she was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, but for most people, she probably wasn't. And I was maybe the only person who asked her out that day or that month. And it's liberating when we realize that actually we can define beauty as we want. In the Medici community, we say that we want to design a beautiful life and a beautiful business, but you decide what beauty looks like. It looks different for person A to person B to person C. And don't make the mistake that only because maybe they have a nice Instagram life that we now think that we should work like this. Even in business, I do a lot of business coaching and consulting, and the way you design your business should be how you want to live your life. It should function and work for you rather than the other way around. And for some, a beautiful business is a business with a lot of people, and for others, it's just for a few people and very lean. And so it's totally okay to do that. So basically from that story, I learned quite a bit about pursuing beauty. But in the end, I think I can summarize it with the question that the question is not, does beauty exist? But are we courageous enough to really chase after it? And that's my hope for the next weeks.